Adam, welcome to Kicking Tables. It's a pleasure to have you on. I understand you are the designer of Fall of the Mountain King, which is a sequel to In the Hall of the Mountain King. So, why don't you tell us about the new game? What's it all about, and how does it play?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. So, Fall of the Mountain King is actually it is a sequel in the sense of it's coming after In the Hall of the Mountain King, but it's actually a prequel in the universe.
Right.
And
Okay.
so, in the Hall of the Mountain King, the gnomes had attacked the trolls sometime in the past, and you were going in and cleaning out the rubble and such, and building new tunnels into the mountain, your old home. Well, Fall of the Mountain King is about those gnomes coming in and attacking, and so it's a very different game in the sense of it's a area control
Mm.
game with champions that are out there working with against the other trolls to fighting the trolls, but the gnomes are actually coming in the mountain as a non-player character
Oh,
essentially. Although
Okay.
you do as a player influence them sometimes. You're not above working with the gnomes against the other players to make them attack the other players. And so the big hook to the game, at least from my perspective, is that the ancestry, which is essentially drives your actions in the game. And so it is a each of the there's ancestry cards which are broken down into four quadrants, and you're actually overlaying them over each other to build
okay.
up your ancestry, and then you're using that by placing tokens on that to power the actions you're taking on the board to try to become the ruler of the dwarves as you or excuse me of the trolls as you know they're leaving the mountain, and so you want to be the ruler to take them out and unite the clans.
So, what kind of actions are you doing on each of your turns? What's a round of gameplay look like?
Right. So the different type of actions you have is advance, which sounds exact or does exactly what it sounds like. You're advancing into the various caverns with your trolls.
Okay.
You have bolster, where you're putting more trolls out on the board so that you can advance with them. And then you have influence the champions. So champions are really powerful trolls that will go out. Most of them go out on the board. Some of them just give you some ability, and so you're trying to influence them to get them to join your side. And so you'll be
Okay.
placing influence on them. And at the end of each wave, there's the game's played over three waves of gnomes attacking. They come to join your side. And then you also have the what we call the gnome wheel, which is essentially a rondelle with a single pawn that moves around it that does those type of actions, but in a different way, and also just gets you honor, which is victory points in the game
Okay.
as well.
Now, are you playing as the invader or the defenders?
You're playing as the
The
defenders. The
defenders.
gnomes are the
Okay.
ones that are invading the mountain, so there's
Gotcha.
different
Okay.
gates around the mountain, and the
Okay.
gnomes are continuing to come in, and you want to try to drive them towards your opponents, but you also want to make sure that you're there defending that gate because if you
Right.
defend the gate and they destroy you, then you gain some honor from that as well. But you
Okay.
don't want them to destroy you completely because you want to control those caverns. So
Right.
ideally, they destroy enough that there's still one troll left in that cavern for you to gain some points off of it.
Okay.
Okay. So this game is a prequel. Was that always the case? Or was this game at some point something else, and then in the Hall of did so well they're like, we need to have something tied into this? How did that discussion happen, and how did this become part of that universe?
Sure. So I've been working on the game for about well, it'll be 5 years in the fall, this coming
Wow.
fall. So since 2016, and no, originally it was the theme was the Danes were attacking England. So I've been reading
Okay.
a whole
Okay.
lot. I don't know if you all have you ever either watched the TV series or read the books called The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell.
I know of it, but I love the show Vikings, and of course
Yeah.
The Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's all
Okay.
about that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So like Alfred the Great, right, was
Yeah.
he's often the king that was sort of given the united England, right? Like it's questionable of where that all happened. Might have been Alfred's father, but like I got reading about it more, and there's seven kingdoms there, and so that's where I was loving those books and these type of games, these troops out on the map fighting each other are my favorite type of games. Like this is a game I designed for myself.
Okay.
Like I love those type of games. And so, um, anyways, that's what really started it, and that's how I pitched it actually to Burnt Island.
Okay.
And they quickly saw and naturally saw, I think, that, oh, this makes sense that the gnomes are coming into the mountain, just like the Danes would have been coming into England. And it actually gave a lot more flexibility to design, because when you're doing something from a history standpoint, you sort of
Yeah.
like, England's got to be shaped like England, right?
Right.
Like versus the mountain was able to be, we were able to make it more balanced and more flexible, and also just allows some more flexibility in other areas of the design. So that's sort of how it came to be. Is it started out with the Danes in England and have moved to the gnomes and the trolls, but the bones are still very much the same idea of an outside force, not at any of the players attacking the players.
Well, what was that like when Burnt Island said, "Hey, we love your game, but let's completely change the theme"?
I mean, it was fine with me
Okay.
because it fit so well,
Ah,
and in the end, I could see that the I guess the greatness of what they have going on with the Mountain King universe, anyways, and
Yeah.
that's a fun theme, and so it made sense to me, and I decided to work with them as well, because
right.
I knew
Of
this
course.
is a this is a big game, and I knew I'd gotten it as far as I could get it as an individual, and
That's
I
fair.
needed a publisher to come in with the resources and the time to be able to
Mm.
really make it into the best thing it could be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Burnt Island Games is a great publisher for that kind of
Yep.
thing. Uh, how different is this game for those who have never played the original? How different is it from In the Hall of?
Sure.
And
I had never actually played in the hall
okay,
before this, and so of course, as soon as we signed, I said, well, I got to get a copy of that and play
Yeah.
it to make sure I'm now working and developing the game in the
sure,
direction that it makes sense. So I would say it's very different.
okay,
I would say it's very different. So it feels like to me that it's much more. There's more player interaction versus in the Hall of the Mountain King, because you are directly like, I'm moving my units into where your units are in the cavern and taking
mm,
that cavern from you. And there's some of that in the hall where you might get to a spot first before they could get somebody their tunnel there. Um, and so it's very different in that sense. It takes about the same amount of time, I would say, at least in my experience from playing both. Um, but it is area control. It is sort of that puzzle element, and that's where I see there's the similarities
right, right.
of your ancestry is a grid, and you've laid these cards out, and so there's that puzzle nature to that, and you sort of have that in the Hall of the Mountain King as well, where you have the puzzle of how you're going to lay your tunnels out, and so Fall of the Mountain King, that puzzle feeling comes from your ancestry, versus what's out on the central board, I would say.
Okay, cool.
So, what are some strategies that you'd recommend for first-time players? First time picking up the game. What sort of things do you recommend to people? What are the first couple of turns going to look like? What are you trying to accomplish?
Sure. Well, in the first, again, it plays over 3 waves, and
Okay.
actually the first 2 waves score differently than the third wave,
Okay.
and so I always tell folks, like, focus on spreading out,
Mm,
because you actually gain honor. The different There's 7 different domains within the mountain, and so you gain honor by spreading out 2 different domains. You gain more honor. You can gain honor by sort of turtling up, but not near as much as by spreading out.
Yeah.
And so I always advise spread out, and don't. And as you're building your ancestry, it's always like, especially when I'm teaching it and demoing it, the way the actions work, you want to, for the most part, you want to try to cluster together the same type of actions in your ancestry, because that it makes it easier to perform larger, more powerful actions. And so those are usually the 2 things I tell folks when they're starting out: spread out and try to cluster your ancestry like type of symbols together in order to be able to have more powerful actions early on.
what I find interesting about this being a prequel, and I'm curious how you handle this in the game. This is essentially telling the story of where the players essentially are going to lose. Like you're going to lose because that's the story. So what was it like developing a game, and how do you overcome that where essentially you're playing characters that are going to lose the battle?
Right, right, yeah. We as the player know that, right? Because
Right,
we played in the Hall of the Mountain King,
right,
so we know that. But the trolls themselves, they don't really know that, right? They're just fighting for their lives and fighting for their mountain. And the gnomes attacking is by far, I think, been the hardest part about the game to design and to develop. Of you don't want to have them so crazy powerful that they just come in and wipe you off the board right away.
Right.
But you don't want them so weak that you don't really even care about them, and because this is the fall of the Mountain King, and so trying to get it,
we know how it ends.
Right, right. Trying to get that balance, and they get stronger and stronger as the game goes on. They attack with more strength as the game goes on. So it has been a real challenge to get there, but I think we're there where it really is really shining, and that funness of like I know we're going to lose. I'm just going to hold them off long enough that I'm in a strong position that I lead the trolls out of the mountain, because it's sort of assumed that, well, the next wave after this one, we're done.
Okay.
You know, that wave we never play, we're done, because they're going to get even stronger as they keep coming in.
So what is your ultimate, how do you decide a winner then, if essentially, we know they all lose? So who is the actual winner?
Right. The winner is the player that gains the most honor, which is done by spreading out early on.
Okay.
And then there's great halls that are in the mountain as well. So the last wave, you switch, instead of spreading out, it's the last ditch effort. We want to protect those great halls. And so you gain honor from that. But also in this game, there's 7 different clans that you are trying to get to follow you. So they also give out a whole lot of honor. So at the end of the game, whoever has the most influence over each of those clans, which you get by taking over caverns in their domain, because the trolls like the aggressive nature. So if you seize control of caverns in their domain, they're going to put some votes your way, for your leadership. And then also the champions, like there may be a champion in the Moss clan, and if you can get Nimla, who's my favorite art in the game, I love his art in the game, is if you get Nimla to join you, he'll give you some votes in the Moss clan.
Okay.
And so, and if he joins your side, right? And so then so through that and through basically on the board, you get the most honor, and then that's the one. And also you gain honor by defeating gnomes. So when you defeat the gnomes, you also gain honor in that way too.
Okay.
So what's next for you? Are you going to be continuing to work on this? Are there expansions maybe in the works for this prequel, or are you working on another rhyming Mountain King title down the road?
Right. I don't know if you've seen the Burn Islands contest they're doing, where they're having folks. I think it's great. I love it. If I had any, like, my skills are definitely more for the design side, not the graphic design side, but like I was thinking Ball of the Mountain King, but actually like a ball, like
it's a masquerade ball, or it's a masquerade ball,
not the masquerade ball, but like the soccer ball of the Mountain King,
Yeah.
So for me, I'll be continuing to work on this, of course, with Burnt Island. What I've really enjoyed working with them because they are constantly like, let's make this better, until hit print, until that is finally printed, continually making it better. And so I'll be working on that with them. Then I have something else. Another game that'll be coming out to Kickstarter that hasn't been announced yet, so I can't say anything more about that, but I'm real excited to be working on that one after that. Then, of course, I always have a couple games in the pipeline, like a much shorter game like then Fall of the Mountain King, but that uses the ancestry mechanic of Fall of the Mountain King. That's the whole focus of that game. So it's like a 30 to 45 minute game instead of a couple hours. So those are always have something working on.
Was there ever any thought put into somehow linking the two games so that you play Fall and then you can go right into Hall and somehow affect the beginning of Hall?
That's not something that
in the Hall.
Burnt Island, but that may be something they've had in mind, for their whole, what I'm calling like their Mountain King universe here. Now that they have 2 games in it, I could easily see something along those lines, maybe something in the future. But as far as now, I'm not aware of any plans for that.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that they could do is, we're going back to the contest, is they need to have a stuffed animal, and it could be the doll of the Mountain King. Let's just sell that.
Right. Perfect. Yeah.
All right, so Adam, we have something. If you've watched a couple of episodes, you've probably seen our lightning round segment where we ask you 8 board game related questions, sort of get to know a little bit more about you and your board gaming ways. You prepared? You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Your favorite childhood game?
Favorite childhood game is probably, well, I guess Risk is probably my favorite. Risk is the one that really got me into gaming when I was a kid at a Christmas party, like 8 years old or something. The older kids said, "Oh, you can play for me," and they only had 3 pieces left on the board, and I got destroyed immediately. Didn't even got to get a turn, but man, I was hooked.
You got to play.
So yeah, exactly. I got to play. So that's probably my favorite childhood game. A lot of good memories playing with my uncle and aunt and family doing that.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, game you love but always lose.
Well,
Risk.
Yeah. Always love but always lose. I would go with, well, lately it's been Azul Summer Pavilion.
Okay.
I've been enjoying that one a whole lot with playing it 2-player with my wife, but I think the last we looked, she wins 80% of the time in a 2-player game. So that's not great odds for me.
Right.
No. All right. Favorite game mechanic?
There's so many. I love games. There's so many, but I would say area control. Like I said, Fall of the Mountain King is something I've designed for myself. So area control, asymmetrical powers, which happens through Fall of the Mountain King, and then the idea of like champions having some special unit that I get that nobody else gets. Those are often my favorite thing. And drafting. I do love drafting as well.
Awesome.
Okay. Last game you purchased?
Last game I purchased. Well, how about, I can't remember the last game I purchased. I guess if we came from Kickstarter and actually showed up, I have backed some others, but Ruination.
Okay.
Ruination?
Yes. And so again, sort of that same idea of troops out there fighting each other. So Ruination from Colossal Games was the last one new game that showed up.
All right, I'm going to add one, Tico. I'm just going to ask one extra question then. On the topic of Kickstarter, what's the last game you backed then? What's the most recent
Last game I backed was Transmissions by Adam West, who also is a good friend of mine and lives here in Indianapolis and part of my design group.
Nice.
And so I played it several times and love to support him, and I know my family's going to love that game. So that's the last game I backed.
Awesome.
Fantastic. All right. Well, this one, worker placement or area control?
I think we know the answer to that one.
Yeah, it's going to be area control. I mean, I do love worker placement. Anachrony is a great game. Agricola, a great game. But I do love some area control and fighting over. Like, I like that direct player interaction that comes with area control.
All right. What is the last game that you actually played?
Ashes Reborn. Just played a couple games of Ashes tonight.
Is that the one right behind you?
Right up over your shoulder.
Yes, that's the original. That's the original Ashes box. They just updated it basically, and so I've been avoiding for the past 6 or 7 years getting back into an LCG or CCG, but I'm all in for Ashes Reborn.
Awesome. Legacy games: destroy components or preserve them?
Oh, destroy them. That's the point. That's the point of the legacy game. It makes it. That's what makes it fun.
All right.
I agree, but there are some times there's like I like this component. I'm just going to put it under the insert just in case.
Right.
Just like to save them.
And I should say, like, legacy games are great for game designers too, because you don't destroy everything in them, right? So I've played all the way through Seafall, and then I bought a second copy of Seafall because all those components in there it was a great deal to be able to use them for my prototypes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
All right, and your favorite modern game?
Favorite modern game is Blood Rage. I love Blood Rage, and so I love the drafting. I love the units, and it plays pretty quickly, and so yeah, it's my favorite modern one for sure.
That's one I've been interested in, and I have yet to play it. So I'm kind of like, it looks cool. I'm like, I don't know anything about this, but I want to play it.
I very well, and it works well. So because you can win and not win any battles.
Oh.
So that really goes well with folks that. So for instance, my wife, she's not a big area control fan, but she likes Blood Rage, and she'll play that one with us because she knows she can try to avoid battles and still and still win the game. So it's gone over pretty well with both the folks that like attacky games and the folks that are less excited about attacky games.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to check that one out. Adam, it has been such a pleasure speaking to you tonight. And before we let you go, why don't you give us the elevator pitch for Fall of the Mountain King? Why should people back this game?
Sure. Great. Well, thank you. Yes. So Fall of the Mountain King is a 2 to 5 well, actually, excuse me, 1 to 5 player game of trolls defending their mountain home against the gnomes coming in. And if you like a lot of the things I've talked about that I personally like in a board game, I think you'll like it. It's going to be Burnt Island is going to do an amazing job, I know, on the production. They've got a history of doing an amazing job on production of games, and like I said, they've done a great job of developing it further. And so, if you enjoy area control and moving your trolls into other people's caverns to take control of those caverns, having champions that are moving on the board and give you those special powers, and really enjoy the real hook of the game, and that all our playtesters are telling us that they really like is this ancestry mechanic of where you're overlaying cards with each other, and then in order to power your actions, you're placing tokens and basically making a path on those cards to power the actions. If those things sound fun to you, I think you'll very much enjoy Fall of the Mountain King, which is hitting Kickstarter June 1st.
That's right. Everybody go check it out June 1st on Kickstarter. The link is in the description below. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great getting to know you and your game, and good luck with the campaign, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. You can subscribe to OMG Nexus right down here below. They have some great content talking to various creators about their games. And then also it'd be great if you would check out the Kickstarter from Burnt Island Games for Fall of the Mountain King on June 1st.